Alright, welcome back to our third video. In this video we're going to use the rules we learned last video about lines and angles, and we're going to try and solve some problems with them. Okay, so we're going to have 4 different problems. Each one we'd recommend you pause it before we start, try the question yourself, and then you can see if you got it right or not. So we'll start with this kind of easy enough one, part 1. So we need to find A and B, and we're given that this angle here is 53 degrees and that these are parallel. So the first thing we're going to look at, so you should remember all the rules in the last video. So you're looking for corresponding angles, vertically opposite. You're looking for straight lines. You're looking for alternate angles, anything like that. So the one I spot straight away is going to be the alternate angles. We're going to have this Z here, which means that A is going to be equal to 53 degrees. I'm just going to write ... alternate, just so that we can show how we got that. And then as well, we should know what B is, because A plus B is going to be equal to 180. So that means 53 plus B is equal to 180. And this is because it's a straight line. So straight line. And that means that B, if you put that into your calculator, is going to be 127 degrees. Okay, so we have A is equal to 53. And then B is equal to 127. So that's the first one. That should have been easy enough. We'll go on to the next question. Okay, so now we have 4 parallel lines and 1 line crossing it. We're given that this angle here is 60 degrees. This is A, B, and C, and these are the angles we're trying to find. So again, pause this and try it yourself first, and then I'll go through it. So again, just try and remember all the rules from the last video. The first thing I see is that straight away A is going to be equal to 60. So A is equal to 60 degrees, and that's because they're vertically opposite, okay? Vertically opposite. Yeah, so that's our first one. And now straight away we can't find the rest of them like instantly, but you can get them if you just take your time, okay? So if we try to get every other angle, eventually we're going to find what B and C are. So I'm going to mark in here in yellow that this angle here is going to be 60 degrees, and the reason for that is that it's corresponding with A. Okay, so it's corresponding angle with A. That means it has the same value, and since A is 60, that this also is 60. Okay, and now in here we have a set of interior angles. Okay, so 60 plus B is equal to 180, and that's because they are interior angles. So remember, they're angles facing each other in kind of a C shape like that, and so that means that B is equal to 120 degrees. I'm going to put a box around that. And now we're just looking for C. So what I'm actually going to say is I'm going to say that this is also 120 degrees. And the reason for that is because it is vertically opposite again. And that means C is also 120 degrees, because if this angle here is C, if this angle here is 120 and this angle is C, they're both corresponding angles. So then I'll just finish that off by saying that C is equal to 120 degrees, and that's because they are corresponding angles. Okay, so each time, so it might seem difficult at the start, but each time you just use one of these simple rules one at a time, and eventually you're going to find each individual piece. Okay, so it's just about taking your time, bit by bit, solving the puzzle, and then finally be left with your 3 answers. So A is equal to 60, B is 120, and C is also 120. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. So again, remember to try and pause it and give it a shot yourself. So here we have 3 parallel lines here, and we have 2 straight lines meeting in the middle there. Okay, so they're parallel because we have the little arrows there. So we have the angle F we want, the angle D, the angle E that we want. We have that this entire thing is 260 degrees, and we have that this is 125 degrees. Okay, so we need to find F, D, and E. So the way I'm going to start this is I'm going to say that this angle here is 125. Sorry, that's a little bit small. That's because they're vertically opposite. And now we have E and 125. They're a set of interior angles. So I'm going to say that E plus 125 has to be equal to 180. I'm just going to write that they're interior. And then that means that E is going to be equal to 55 degrees. Okay, so that's our first one done. So we just got vertically opposite and then interior. Those were the 2 rules we used. Now we have this entire circle here, so we can say that E plus D plus 260, that's all going to be equal to 360 degrees. So that means that D is equal to 360 degrees minus 260 degrees, just moving this to the other side, minus E, okay, which is 55 degrees, minus 55 degrees, and we're going to be left with D is equal to 45 degrees. 45 degrees. Okay, if D is equal to 45 degrees, then we can find what this angle here is that I'm just drawing in. Again, I guess that's because they're interior angles, so it works out that they are. So I'll try and squeeze it in here. I should be messier, or should be less messy. So I'm going to say that 45 plus, I'm just going to call this X quickly, is equal to 180, and that means X is equal to 135 degrees. So that means if I scribble this out here, that X out there, that means we have 135 in there instead. And then just to finish that off, because F and 135 are vertically opposite, we're going to have that F, that's too many, is equal to 135 degrees. So again, I'll just put a final box around that. So sorry, like I ran out of space there. But again, you see it's just step by step. Sorry about that, it's just step by step using each one of the simple rules we learned in the last video, one at a time, and eventually you can get every single angle in a question. So the last question we're going to do is going to be the hardest one so far, so I'll scroll down and have a look at it. So here we have two parallel lines, this one here and this one here. We have an angle 66 and an angle 34. We have this angle H in between them. Okay, so the reason this is so difficult is there's no immediate alternate or corresponding or vertically opposite or any of those angles kind of that are super clear straight away. So the trick to this question is what you have to do, and I'll go dark blue for it, is you have to draw another line yourself. Okay, so it doesn't have to be super accurate. All you have to do is just draw a line like that, and you have to say that it's parallel. So it doesn't matter if it isn't perfectly parallel, because it's supposed to represent a parallel line. Okay, so if we have a line like that that's parallel, then this is going to become H1, and this here is going to become H2. Okay, so it's not super clear there. We have this angle, and then we have this angle is H1. Okay, so H2 and H1. So I'm going to draw these out a little bit clearer just over here because it's quite crowded and messy in there. So here I just drew them out quickly. So again, I just kind of split it up into two separate drawings. So we have the blue line here is parallel to the green line, so that's just the top half of this. And the bottom half then, we have a blue line parallel to the green line in the bottom. We have H1 and H2 a little bit separately. And now it should be a lot clearer about why this blue line helps us so much, because we can see that H1 is going to be equal to 66 degrees, and that's because they are alternate angles. So alternate. And then H2 is equal to 34 degrees, and again that's because they're alternate, and that means our final answer is just going to be that H here is going to be equal to H1 plus H2. So H, what we were looking for in the beginning, is equal to H1 plus H2. So that means that H is going to be equal to 100 degrees. Okay, so there's no easy way to say when you should draw a line. Some of these things can be quite difficult, and you just have to practice and see little tricks like that. So you're always looking for alternate angles and vertically opposite. Sometimes you might even have to draw your own lines. So that's just showing how difficult these problems can get. The rest of them hopefully were okay, and it was just using a few of the rules consecutively to find whichever angles you were looking for. So that video went on quite long. There's loads and loads more examples you could try, and I'd recommend you try yourself just to practice it. But that is it for lines and angles. In the next video we're going to look at triangles. Okay, so we're going to revise triangles from the junior cert and a little bit from trigonometry. So if you like the video, like and subscribe, and share it with your friends as well. So we'll see you in the next video about triangles.